Hello, everyone, and many thanks for joining today's live stream. First news update for 30th of October. Now it's 11 o'clock in the morning, Moscow time, and as always, I have prepared quite a number of news on some major developments, and hopefully, you will find the news segment informative, interesting, useful, and if so, let me ask you once again to like the video. In that case, leave some commentary, even share if you can with your friends. That will help to reach wider audience, I guess. And as always, if there are gonna be any questions through, I don't know, super chat on Rumble, or through some other support platforms, PayPal, Boosty, I will react on it after the news segment. I will mention once again that yesterday during the morning's update, unfortunately, I missed super chat, I guess. I don't understand how I did it. But yes, I missed it, I guess. And my apologies for that. I don't even know how to recover chat on Rumble. But yeah, things happen time to time. But nevertheless, many thanks to member or potentially members of community who sent the super chat yesterday during the first live stream. Okay, dear friends, that's been said, let's start the news segment now. And well, a lot is happening, isn't it? A lot is happening, and I will start with the breaking news, I will say, for this moment, which is that Trump ordered immediate nuclear weapons testing, which is obviously a big deal. There was a moratorium on nuclear testings for decades now, and for whatever reasons, Trump make it public that U.S. will resume nuclear tests. So U.S. President Donald Trump ordered the immediate commencement of nuclear weapons testing. He announced this on a social media platform, True Social, which is crazy on its own, right? This is a major statement, major development, and Trump is making an announcement about it on True Social, which is just insane, man. This is not okay, absolutely not okay. What is happening, but that's the reality. So I have directed the Department of War to begin testing our nuclear weapons on an equal basis. This process will begin immediately, he said, and I have his post actually from True Social that I can read for you. So the United States has more nuclear weapons than any other country. He's lying about it, by the way. Russia has more nukes, as if it matters, right? But this constant, this sickening attitude of US elites, by the way, or Western elites, that they have to brag about how great and how powerful and how first in everything they are. They are just lying constantly in pursuit of this goal to pretend that they are all powerful and all number one all the time. Sickening, really. This was accomplished including a complete update and renovation of existing weapons during the first term in office. Because of the tremendous destructive power, I hated to do it, but had no choice. Russia is a second and China is a distant third, but will be even within 5 years. Because of other countries' testing programs, I have instructed the Department of War to start testing our nuclear weapons on an equal basis. That process will begin immediately. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. Yet again, but share what you think about it. In this one post, he lied like several times, right? He just cannot not lie. He is a chronicle liar, right? First of all, US does not have most nuclear weapons. Although, by the way, you are first or second or third. When we are talking about Russia, US, China, all three countries have enough nukes to sterilize this planet quite effectively, right? So does it really matters? Are you first and have few hundred more nukes, or are you second or third? No, it does not, makes no difference whatsoever, right? But tell this to Trump and Western political class in general. Secondly, he lied that U.S. began working on update of nuclear program during his first term. This is a lie. US never stopped actually updating its nuclear weapons, right? This is a constant process. And third lie from Trump in this just one freaking post is that he's saying that other countries are doing the same. Other countries are doing nuclear testing, which is not true, by the way. No one is doing nuclear tests. Literally no one. No nuclear test is happening for last couple of decades, right? And US will be first to resume nuclear testing, and I guess other countries will follow. And Russian leadership was very clear, by the way, including, I believe, Russian Foreign Intelligence Service, that reported that US is preparing its nuclear test sites, right? We are receiving these kind of reports for quite a while now that US is preparing nuclear test sites. I guess they finalized their works there, and soon nuclear tests will begin. And obviously, while observing developments in US in terms of these nuclear sites, Russia also began working on a Russian nuclear test site on Novaya Zemlya Island archipelago. And once US resumes nuclear tests, I guess Russia will do the same, and China will do the same, potentially all the other countries. So this is a very destructive step from the US, let's say, to say the least. And I have videos, dear friends, or audios, to be more precise, of some statements of Trump in regards to this nuclear testing. And let me give you these short-term audios. So this one, for example.
Social about nuclear testing. What about resuming nuclear testing? What prompted you to do that right before the meeting?
It had to do with others. They seem to all be nuclear testing.
Russia?
We have more nuclear weapons than anybody. We don't do testing. We've halted it many years ago. But with others doing testing, I think it's appropriate that we do also.
You see, he's saying that when others doing testing, it's appropriate we do. So others are not doing non-nuclear testing. It's a liar. It's a lie, and no one challenged him right there on the plane. He's going back to US, I guess, from South Korea, right, where he had a meeting with a Chinese leader, local leadership, and also Chinese leader. I will get to that point later on in this program. But yes, I mean, he's just a freaking chronicle liar, man, this Trump. And no one is challenging him. And I guess the US public will actually think, significant part of it at least, that, well, other countries are doing these tests, so what is the big deal if we will do too? Because they don't know better. They don't know any better, because there is no journalists left in the US, right? In MSM. In alternative media, yes, but not in MSM, by the way. And no one challenged him. No one said, which country tested the nukes, man? Which? Just tell us. And there is also another short video, by the way, short audio, sorry, on the matter. Let's listen to this one too.
Announcement, just one more on the nuclear announcement. Do you worry that we're entering a more risky environment when it comes to nuclear issues?
No, I don't think so. I think we have it pretty well locked up. But we have more than anybody. But I see them testing. I say, well, if they're going to test, I guess we have to test. I'd like to see a denuclearization, because
it's crazy, isn't it? He's pushing for a nuclear arms race. That's what resumption of nuclear testing is. And same time, he says, I want denuclearization. What the fuck? What the hell, man? What the hell? Unbelievable, man.
We have so many, and Russia has some. Russia's second, and China's third, and China will catch up within 4 or 5 years. I think de-escalation would be, they would call it denuclearization, would be a tremendous thing. And it's something, we are actually talking to Russia about that, and China would be added to that.
Another lie, by the way, US is not talking to Russia. Russian president actually proposed just a couple of weeks ago to US, to American side, to prolong New START treaty at least for a year before sides will manage to work on another treaty potentially. And to nowadays, there was no response from US, no official response, right? So Trump, yet again, he's lying in every freaking sentence he makes, man. I don't know what the hell is wrong with this creature, but he's just chronicle liar, man.
Do something. Thank you all. It was a great success. It was a great honor. I mean, he's a tremendous leader of a very powerful country, and I give great respect to him. And we appreciate the fact that he came for this meeting. Thank you very much.
I don't know. This is truly insane, dear friends. I'll try to maintain polite language, but in regards to Trump, but nevertheless, this is not normal. This is not okay. And if anything, it's first of all, American people, citizens of US, have to think about what the hell is going on with their political class, political leadership, or so-called elites, and what they can actually do to, I don't know, at least try and influence positively on these morons that are formally at least in charge there, right? Because this is not okay. US president quite effectively announced the beginning of a nuclear arms race. First of all, with China, because I'm quite sure Russia will not engage in no nuclear arms race. We don't need that, right? And we don't need it because, as I reported yesterday, dear friends, during the second live stream, Russia does has weapon systems that are basically extremely capable, and there hardly any country in this world has any means to neutralize these weapon systems, right? I'm talking about, of course, hypersonic weapons. I'm talking about underwater autonomous vehicles, many other things. I will get to that point in a minute, but first of all, let me continue, dear friends, with other topics. Let's talk about Ukrainian crisis, for example. And yesterday, Russian president, while meeting with Russian military personnel that was recovering from injuries in a hospital, military hospital, president stated that Moscow is ready, or Russia is ready, to basically offer temporary ceasefire to encircle the groupings of forces of a Kiev regime in Kupiansk, in Pokrovsk-Mirnograd agglomeration, and Russia is also open to a possibility that journalists, not just from Russia, but from Kiev-controlled territory, from Western countries, should enter the area so that they can document their current situation, because Kiev regime, Kiev regime is denying existence of encirclement. They are not acknowledging that thousands of their troops being encircled and are basically destined to be neutralized, right? If they would not receive order authorization from a Kiev regime to lay down arms and surrender, or if those troops themselves will not make such a decision, and journalists can actually depict the situation. Of course, they're not going to be allowed in, by the way. Kiev regime will never agree on that. Most importantly, Kiev regime's NATO backers never going to agree on that, because that will destroy whole narrative, right, of the Western propaganda that there is a stalemate, nothing is happening, right? And now I don't see how very same Western so-called elites will allow their propaganda means, their so-called media, to go in Pokrovsk, Mirnograd, Kupiansk, by the way, and document thousands and thousands of military personnel of Kiev regime being encircled, being desperate, and they're begging their government to save their lives, right? To authorize them to, lay down arms and surrender, for example, or to evacuate them if possible. But anyways, Russia did offer this temporary ceasefire. No response, no official response for this moment. Maybe during the day we will hear anything about it from a Kiev regime. But if they will say something, most likely they will say it's a trick on part of Russia. There is no encirclement, no nothing. We are in charge. We are attacking. We are on approaches to Moscow, and that kind of nonsense, right? That you constantly hear from the either Western propaganda or the Kiev regime, right? But offer is there. To nowadays, until now, at least, offer is there, and at least Russian side probably will make sure that information about this offer will reach Kiev regime's military personnel that are encircled in Kupiansk, Pokrovsk, and Mirnograd, right, and surrounding few settlements. And once Kiev regime's forces, encircled forces, realize that, well, Kiev regime just don't cares about their lives whatsoever, maybe local commanders will make decision to save the lives of their military personnel and contact Russian side and organize safe surrender. That will be best because obviously, even if they will try to escape from this encirclement, they're going to suffer tremendous losses, 50, 70, maybe 80% losses. Potentially, no one will even manage to escape. And we are talking about 10,000 plus military personnel that's encircled right now in Pokrovsk, Mirnograd, and in Kupiansk. So, good humanitarian gesture on side of Moscow, but unfortunately, I don't think this will work. Let's see. Also, during this conversation with Russian militaries, President once again spoke about Burevestnik nuclear-powered missile and made quite interesting statements about it. Let me give you some details. And of course, Burevestnik is one of their weapon systems that I just mentioned. Russia don't need to build more nukes because Russia has weapon systems that barely any hostile country can intercept, either in air or under the sea, right? So we have enough nukes. Therefore, we will not engage in a nuclear arms race, but China will probably. China will, and I don't think US is in the position to be engaged in a nuclear arms race or arms race in general with China because they will lose, right? Industrial capabilities of two countries are just too different, right? China is a monster when it comes to industry and industrial capabilities. US is like third-rate country at this point, right? They cannot produce even fitting, I don't know, my nails at this point, right? They can produce nothing, generally speaking, right? And so let's continue with this news here. Russia's unlimited range Burevestnik cruise missile is based on breakthroughs in a nuclear reactor technology that allow a high degree of miniaturization and quicker attainment of their operational power, President Vladimir Putin said on Wednesday. A landmark test of their nuclear-capable weapon was announced last week. The president praised the engineers behind their achievement during the meeting with the injured Russian soldiers in military hospital. The missile reactors is comparable to in output with the reactor of a nuclear-propelled submarine, but it is 1,000 times smaller and different. As I also focused yesterday during the second update on this particular point, just imagine what that means. That this tiny reactor that is used in that Burevestnik generates almost or maybe exactly the similar volume of power, output of energy as nuclear reactors on submarines, father. It's a tremendous level of miniaturization, actually, right? If numbers are comparable, right? I still struggle to wrap my mind around this whole technology, man. How Russian engineers managed to do this? This information clearly looks like something from I don't know, Iron Man movie, right? That Stark was constantly updating his reactor, isn't it? And some extraordinary breakthroughs were achieved by Russian engineers, I guess, in regards to this reactor for Burevestnik. Putin also said key thing is that where a regular reactor needs hours, days, or even weeks to go online. This one launches in the minutes or the seconds. Discoveries are made during the creation of the unique power plant will find applications in civilian life, for example, in building energy infrastructure in the Arctic, the president said. Meanwhile, the electronic components shielded from radiation that were developed for the Burevestnik are already being used in space missions and will be utilized in Russia's moon exploration program. Burevestnik, by the way, there was a successful test of Burevestnik, the latest one. About it was announced last week when Russian president was having meeting with the commanders of the Russian armed forces, including head of general staff Valery Gerasimov. And during that conversation, public received information that during the latest test, Burevestnik, this nuclear-powered missile, flew 14,000 kilometers, and duration of their flight was about 15 hours. 15 hours, by the way, rocket was in air, right? And this is definitely not the limit. Theoretically, this weapon system can fly months on end, as long as it has nuclear fuel, right? And when it comes to nuclear fuel, by the way, what is unique about this stuff is that, well, you only refuel nuclear reactors once in every couple of years, right? You don't refuel nuclear reactors every month or every 2 months. No, man, it happens once in number of years, right? So theoretically speaking, Burevestnik can actually fly months, 2 months, 3 months, 5 months, maybe even a year, by the way, right? Until it receives order to strike certain area. And also what is interesting about Burevestnik, it can detect work of enemy air defenses and just do maneuvering horizontally, vertically, and just move around, avoiding areas of work of air defense, right? So it barely can be intercepted. So definitely significant progress. We are learning a little bit more and more about these latest weapon systems that Russia is adopting. Burevestnik is already ready to enter the service, and the Russian president during that meeting last week said that infrastructure has to be built to deploy this weapon system on combat duty, and also name has to be generated for this type of weapons, because this is unique weapon. No one ever had anything like that. And I guess only like usual strategical weapon system is not enough for this weapon. Maybe something else, some other designation will be created for this type of weapons, right? And also Russian president spoke about another advanced Russian weapon system, much more powerful, much more, incomparably more powerful than Burevestnik, by the way, which is an underwater autonomous vehicle, also nuclear powered and nuclear tipped, right? So Russia tested their Poseidon underwater vehicle on this Tuesday, by the way, a few days ago. President Vladimir Putin announced that during the meeting with the special operations personnel at the Central Military Hospital in Moscow. And we have a quote here from President. Yesterday, we conducted another test of another promising system, the Poseidon unmanned underwater vehicle with the nuclear power plant. For the first time, we were able to not only launch it from the submarine using its booster motor. So this Poseidon is launched from a submarine and then goes autonomous. So for the first time, we were able to not only launch it from a submarine using its booster motor, but also to start the nuclear power plant, which the vehicle operated for a certain period of time. This is a huge success. He noted Poseidon has no equal in terms of speed and depth, and it's unlikely that anything similar will appear anytime soon. Putin emphasized that there are no ways to intercept such a device. The president first announced the development of this drone in his address to the Federal Assembly in 2018. It can carry both conventional and nuclear munition and strike enemy aircraft carrier groups, coastal fortifications, and their infrastructure. According to open sources, the length of the Poseidon is about 20 meters. It's quite a massive stuff, by the way. Diameter is 1.8 meter, and weight is about 100 tons. So impressive. What can I say? And according to rumors or speculations in the very same open sources, Poseidon will carry nuclear warhead of either 100 megaton with either 100 megaton yield or even 400 megaton. About 400, I'm skeptical. I said that quite a few times. It's just freaking too much, right? I have no doubts Russian scientists can build warhead with 400 megaton yield power, but it's just excess. I mean, why you need 400 megaton for what? And 100 megaton will do the job, right? And if this weapon system ever going to be deployed, basically based on what I read in open sources, principle of operation of this weapon is that if order is given, this underwater autonomous nuclear powered nuclear tipped vehicle will get closer to shore of a hostile state and detonate in shallow waters. That means not that far away from the coastal line, right? And this tremendous explosion of 100 megaton, potentially even higher, will create a massive tsunami, massive radioactive tsunami that will destroy literally everything on the coast itself, and as long as that wave can go into the land, right? So it is you can imagine how destructive that would be. And yet again, this weapon system would not be detonated under the depth of 3, 4, 5 kilometers, because in such depth there is pressure is so high that detonation of 100 megaton, you might not even notice on the surface anything whatsoever, right? Maybe just little ripples. But a point is that this weapon will detonate in shallow waters, close to coastal line, right? When depth is several hundred meters. And usually it's several hundred meters all around the world, right? You're gonna see very few places in this world where you have a depth of kilometers straight after the coast. No, man, it goes little by little, right? In depth. So basically, no area in this world is safe and secure from this weapon system, either Poseidon or Burevestnik. And I remind you, friends, that Russia, on top of that, also has quite a number of hypersonic weapon systems that no one else has. Analogs, I mean, countries are trying. China is trying to do some stuff about it, and they do have some success. But Russian weapons are combat tested. These hypersonic ones, especially Kinzhal, by the way, right? That was used, for example, according to reports last night, to strike military, logistical, and energy infrastructure of the Kiev regime. And there is also other missiles, hypersonic missiles, that cannot be intercepted. Kinzhal is one. There is Avangard, another. And also Oreshnik, of course, also hypersonic weapon system that is straight out of science fiction movie, by the way. So yes, you see, Russia don't really need to build more nuclear warheads. Technically speaking, Russia is advancing its delivery vehicles, right? Russia is adopting new generation of delivery vehicles, which will guarantee that whatever warheads we're gonna send towards the enemy, they will actually reach the destination, right? While US lacks these advanced technologies, so therefore maybe US will try to increase number of its nukes, right? To have somewhat similar chances that they will launch 1,000 nukes and maybe 10 will reach destination, or 20 or something like that. In any case, if it comes to full-scale nuclear war between Russia and US, between China and US, or between NATO and the rest of the world, no one gonna win anyways, right? Let's be clear on that. No one gonna win nuclear war anyways, and not all humanity will achieve with that is to kill itself and sterilize this planet quite effectively. That's it. But I think all these developments are quite interesting. And yet again, to go back to this first news that Trump authorized to start nuclear tests, this is definitely bad news for this world because, one might argue that we can forget now about non-proliferation treaty because if everything is allowed, then including nuclear testing, then why on earth countries worldwide that are on the edge of creating nuclear bombs will say, "Oh, we are not doing it"? No, they will go ahead and build nukes too, right? And US is the country that is destroying all this international framework that was in the place to keep this world safer from nuclear weapons. US is the country that destroys all this framework and the collective West in general. Okay, dear friends, to continue, let me give you, I mentioned Ukraine, isn't it? Kiev-controlled territory. And videos are circulating this morning on internet about a massive rout that happened in Odessa. Kiev regime's criminals were trying to kidnap people, the so-called military recruiters were trying to kidnap people, but I guess level of anger in society, at least in some parts of Kiev-controlled territory, is on such a scale now that, locals did not just oppose these terrorist criminals of the Kiev regime, but they actually beat their freaking hell out of them, right? And I can show you a video of that. Quite impressive, by the way. One might say this is an indicator for things to come on Kiev-controlled territory. Maybe soon people will actually rebel. Maybe, at least in the central and the southern regions, it's a possibility because look at this video, dear friends. These people definitely not look happy, man. You can see there are some criminals of Zelensky's regime run away on that car, but not all. Some of them were unable to run away. And you can hear comments there. Молодцы. Молодцы means great. It's a positive commentary towards the people that are basically fighting with these recruiters of Kiev regime. People had enough, man. Seems like, at least in some parts. That's the vehicle of those recruiters, terrorists of Zelensky. And some of those recruiters were captured. These are captured ones. So, yeah, clearly, at least on some areas, by the way. I don't know what is the situation in Western Ukraine, which is a stronghold of political Ukrainianism, Ukrainian fascists and the Nazis. But you can clearly see that in Odessa region, Kiev regime's recruiters or criminals are not welcomed. Clearly, by the way. So that's the situation there. Let's continue with some other news. And as I already mentioned, dear friends, Trump and Xi Jinping had a meeting in Busan, port city of South Korea. Meeting lasted about like 1 hour and 40 minutes. Neither leaders of those two countries, China and US, looked happy. Really, if you saw videos of that initial part of the meeting when press was allowed, I mean, Chinese leader looked like annoyed. By the way, he did not wanted to be there, I guess, but this is a part of the game, right? This political game that all the political leaders of the countries are engaged in, and he just, I guess, had to be there, right? And well, after this meeting, Trump spoke a little on the plane on his way back to US, I guess. I don't know where he's planning to go, but and neither I care, by the way. But he spoke to so-called journalists from presidential pool and said that certain agreements were reached there. Meeting was great, success, and this and that. He said that US will reduce this so-called fentanyl tariff from 20% to 10%, and one might argue that means Chinese side promise that they will do whatever they can to stop export of fentanyl to US. But yet again, fentanyl, by the way, is used in different industries, including in the medicine, right? Issue is not fentanyl, issue is who is ordering this fentanyl, right? And how this fentanyl then is used. This chemical substance itself is can be used in many different, it has many different applications, right? So I don't really understand what China gonna do about it, right? They have to ban any export of fentanyl to US. Some people think fentanyl itself is a drug like heroin is. No, man. Fentanyl has plenty of applications in different fields, right? So what China gonna do? Completely ban export of fentanyl into US? Maybe they have to do it, because I guess Beijing at this point is sick and tired, really hearing from US that Beijing is targeting US citizens with this fentanyl and stuff. Xi Jinping has no freaking care about neither US citizens or the fentanyl or anything else, right? In regards to US, it's not his job. His job is to take care of China, right? And maybe to avoid this useless talk about this particular matter, he will say soon to their customs service or to whomever in China that, you know what, ban any freaking export of this chemical to US. Just do it, so that those creatures will not stop talking too much, right, on the matter. Maybe that's what China gonna do. I don't know, right? Also, when it comes to this China-US talks, some media outlets are reporting that US and China will reduce tariffs, basic tariffs too, on top of this US 10% reduction on this so-called fentanyl tariff. And the reports are that China allegedly agreed to ease their export control on rare earth. Okay, we will find out. We will find out what is going to happen. But my personal understanding is that this meeting was not really a success story. I don't know what Trump was hoping for, but I did not see no reports that will clearly indicate that some great breakthrough was reached between US and China. And I don't think we should even expect any breakthrough. I mean, American officials directly, openly, in public, by the way, calling China enemy, calling China hostile, calling to destroy China, Chinese people, Chinese economy, Chinese everything, right? They are not any less hostile towards China than they are hostile towards Russia and everything Russian, right? So therefore, Chinese leadership knows perfectly well those ones, man, those people from U.S. elites or from Western elites, they despise us. They don't see us as a humans, right? They hate us all. They won't kill us all. So what the hell? I mean, we are enemies, right? And so we will deal with them as we should. That's the Chinese attitude, I guess, right? All China needs right now is time, really. The U.S. is losing this war with China, Cold War with China, and the US is losing dramatically this war, right? They are not even close, as Trump loves to say. These two countries are not even close, man. China is an economical powerhouse, industrial powerhouse. US is a third-rate country, really. And if you don't believe me, dear friends, or if you just travel to US, man, travel to US and see yourself, right? It's a third-rate country. Only remnants is there, right, from great, let's say, uplifting that U.S. experienced after Second World War, and that upward spiral continued at least before end of 70s, maybe one might argue before end of 80s, and since 80s, man, U.S. is on decline, and it is becoming very much visible. Very much visible. Remember, last year it was, isn't it? On the Mississippi, if I remember correctly, bridge collapsed because some vessel struck that bridge. And you think that bridge is being rebuilt? No. They are not even working on that. Did not even started yet, rebuilding the bridge. They took out debris as much as they could, and that's about it, right? While in the same time, by the way, China has built their enormous bridges, new bridges, by the way, from the scratch, right? The longest one, tallest one, this and that, and everything that people used to see in US when it comes to these engineering marvels now is happening in China. US no longer impresses no one with their technological achievements, right? Some might argue, well, AI, what about AI? What about AI, man? What? In 10 years' time, US will have to double energy production, electricity production. You think US is in a position to double energy production to maintain current rate of accelerating expansion of these AI technologies and these data centers? You think US will be able to double its energy production in 10 years? No, man, it's not happening. US already lost technological race too. Just let's be real here, right? So that's it. And that's why I was saying from the beginning that there is a total waste of time on part of Chinese leadership to have a meeting with the Trump. What they're going to talk about? Like freaking fentanyl, man? Seriously? Seriously? But yet again, that's a part of a game, I guess. It comes with the territory. You just have to participate in this nonsense, right? And have meetings with nobodies time to time. And Trump is clearly nobody, right? Let's continue with some other news. Or at least, by the way, Xi Jinping is a decision maker. As a Russian president is a decision maker, right? A number of other politicians worldwide. But Trump is freaking nobody. Trump is a puppet that was put in the White House as Biden was put in the White House before him. And all the others, right? After Kennedy, I don't think US ever had actual president that was at least trying to work for people. After Kennedy was killed, deep state, neocons, and all sorts of influential groups finalized the capture of their government, right? And all the institutions. And since then, US never had a president that was actually a decision maker. Kennedy was last, man. You can agree with me or not, but that's how I think, right? Anyways, let's continue. RIA Novosti is reporting, based on the Russian Defense Ministry's latest update, that air defense systems on duty last night intercepted 170 drones that was launched by Kyiv regime with assistance of NATO to strike deep into Russian territory. 170, by the way. So I can give you some details on that. 48 drones were intercepted over the Bryansk region, 21 drones over the Voronezh region, 16 over the Nizhny Novgorod, 15 in Kaluga, 14 in Rostov, 10 in Kursk, 9 in the Moscow region, including 6 that was directed towards capital of Russia, Moscow, 5 each in Ryazan, Volgograd, and Novgorod regions, 4 each in Republic of Crimea, Oryol, and Belgorod regions, 1 in Lipetsk region. Quite a large geography of and quite a large scale attempt on part of Kyiv regime and NATO to strike deep into Russian territory. Most of the drones, 170 drones, were intercepted. Maybe 1 or 2 drones somewhere did manage to bypass air defenses. For this moment, I did not see no reports about strikes anywhere, but if any update on that, of course, I will share additional information. But in response, by the way, Russian Air Force is also conducting retaliatory strikes on regular basis. And this morning, I did share on my Telegram and Twitter X pages this report that, according to several sources, last night, Russian Air Forces launched a long-range precision strike on military, logistical, and energy infrastructure in the temporarily NATO-controlled territory of the former Ukraine, in the areas of Zaporozhye, Dnipropetrovsk, Sumy, Chernigov, Poltava, Kharkov, Kyiv, Ivano-Frankovsk, Lvov, Ternopil, Lutsk, and others. This time around, by the way, seems like main focus of Russian long-range precision strikes was western Ukraine. And reports are coming in that airfield was struck big time in Novokonstantinov area, and also some energy infrastructure was struck in Ivano-Frankovsk regions. All over the Kyiv controlled territory, there is energy shortages at this point, blackouts basically, and Kyiv regime is declaring that there will be graphic of energy supply for the regions that Kyiv regime is and NATO still are in control. So some significant damage was done to military, logistical, and energy capabilities of enemy. RT is also reporting that nearly 100,000 young men flee Kyiv-controlled territory in just last 2 months. So and good for them, by the way, good for them. They're potentially saving their lives. So nearly 100,000 young men have left Kyiv-controlled territory since their Kiev eased the movement restriction in August in an effort to tackle the conscription crisis. Politico Europe and the Telegraph reported on Wednesday, citing data from the Polish border guard. The outlets said that 98,500 Ukrainians aged between 18 and 22 crossed the border in September and October, compared to just 45,300 in January and August. And by the way, this is Polish. This is just border crossings in Poland, 98,000, right? Almost 100,000. If you keep in mind that Kyiv-controlled territory is bordering not just with the Poland, but also with Hungary, by the way, with Slovakia, with Romania. Overall number of young men that flee Kyiv-controlled territory could be like twice as much. Right? And yet again, well done to these younger people. They're going to save their lives because it's only a matter of time before globalists and globalist controlled regimes in the collective West will order basically Zelensky and his criminal affiliates, criminal associates of him to begin forcefully mobilizing young people too, from 18 to 22, right? From 18 to 25. It's only a matter of time. So good information here that hundreds of thousands of younger people on Kyiv-controlled territory saving their lives and fleeing. All should go, by the way. All of them should flee. And I will, I don't think my video is being watched on Kyiv-controlled territory, but if some do watch, I would definitely recommend to evacuate into Europe. I will recommend to all civilians on Q-control territory to evacuate towards the Europe, especially now before winter comes, right? Because this winter might be very severe and very difficult, especially in the cities. In a village, it's a different story. You can deal with anything if you are living in a village, right? But if you live in city on the 15th floor, for example, right, and there is no electricity and there is no heating, what you gonna do? So yeah, it will be rational if all the civilians on Q-controlled territory, for the time being, until we will liberate historical Russian land, will evacuate to Europe, and then once military phase of this operation is over, they can come back, of course, to their homes and just live their happy lives, pursue happiness, and so on. Right now, main point for them should be to save their lives for civilians on Q-controlled territory. Let's continue with some other news. And threats, by the way, threats from the West is, of course, tradition at this point. Threats towards Russia, and U.S. Permanent representative to NATO, Matthew Whitaker, issued another threats towards Russia that if Russia don't obey his orders, they're gonna send more and more weapons to Kiev regime, and this time he's talking about weapons worth $15 billion. And he's expecting that European NATO member states will soon, in the beginning, already towards the beginning of 2026, will come up with this number, 15 billion, to be spent on U.S. weapons, so that U.S. military-industrial complex will be happy, no matter how many thousand residents of Kiev-controlled territory gonna pay for that with their lives. They don't care. They don't care. Globalists, neocons, and so on, and all that their allies will sacrifice literally everybody on the Kiev-controlled territory to enrich themselves, to pursue their geopolitical agenda. They don't care about humans whatsoever. RT is reporting that Russia reacts on the Belgian threat to wipe Moscow off their map. Yes, by the way, don't be surprised. Nowadays, even those chihuahuas, man, are threatening to wipe out Moscow from their map. I guess, some might say that's what happens when you constantly exercising restraint. Even chihuahuas began to think that, they are bosses and you are nobody. Belgium demonstrates that, isn't it? Belgium defense minister or foreign minister, who said that Moscow will be wiped out. Let me go through this news. Russia has accused Belgian defense minister, yes, Theo Franken, of irresponsible rhetoric after he suggested that NATO could wipe Moscow off the map. In an interview with the Morgan newspaper published on Monday, Franken brushed off concerns that currently shelled their delivery of US-made Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine could trigger an all-out war between Russia and NATO. He claimed that Russian President Vladimir Putin would not use nuclear weapons because the US-led bloc will wipe Moscow off the map, and that conventional attack on Brussels would also result in Moscow getting flattened. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Alexander Grushko told RBK on Wednesday that Franken's words were in line with the atmosphere of military psychosis prevalent in Western Europe. The Russian embassy in Belgium similarly condemned Franken's provocative and irresponsible statements as sheer absurdity and their total disconnect from the reality. Okay, Russia is, criticized the Belgium defense minister, but yet again, man, I don't know. Should we cry or should we laugh at this point? Even freaking chihuahuas, man. Even freaking chihuahuas are threatening now to wipe out all of us here in Moscow and elsewhere. Okay, man. That's where we are, right? uh, and yeah, restraint, and that's what constant restraint does. No one believes that Moscow will retaliate. I mean, Moscow will do anything, no matter what kind of provocations we're going to face from the West. And therefore, this situation is getting more and more dangerous, because if Western elites and actually believe that no matter level of escalation from their side, Moscow will do nothing, then uh, they will not just not stop, by the way, they will constantly increase level of escalation, right? And who knows, man? Who knows? Maybe soon they will start freaking transferring nukes to Kiev regime, so that Kiev regime will begin deploying, nukes against us and killing millions of us, right? I said many times before, by the way, Western elites prepare the ground for a transformation of Kiev regime into a nuclear-armed regime, right? There was plenty of articles in the Western so-called media how capable Kiev regime is to build dozens and even hundreds of basic atomic bombs if they want to, right? And this type of articles are not random stuff, by the way. This was a clear attempt or clear preparation of the ground by the globalists and globalist control regimes in the West to prepare public opinion that, well, if nuke goes off somewhere in Russia, in Moscow or elsewhere, it's not us, it's not NATO, it's Kiev regime, by the way. They have you see, Financial Times talk about it, economists spoke about it, all the other media outlets already told you that Kiev regime can do this. That's what is happening, man. And yeah, I don't know how to comment on that, man, really. We might actually face a situation when we being bombed by nukes and we are still exercising restraint. That would not surprise me at all, by the way. I think even if Russia is nuked by NATO, Moscow might continue to exercise restraint. I'm not confident that Russian side with Russian president will authorize nuclear retaliation on the countries that were nuking us. I have no confidence, man, that I can die in peace if we being nuked. I have no confidence that we will nuke them back, man. And it is important, if I have to die in a nuclear hell, this death will be a little less painful, I guess, if I would know that our enemies are dead too. And unfortunately, I don't have that confidence at this point. It is sad that we are talking about this subject at all, but yes, man, we're being threatened openly, directly, that millions of people here in Moscow will be killed there like that. And yeah, this might happen, man. This might happen. And that again, if even Chihuahuas are threatening us, then there's nothing to say more. Holy restraint rules, right? And it's not just Belgium, by the way. There is also Baltic Chihuahuas that are provoking and escalating with Russia. They also are emboldened, why not, really? And Russian foreign minister responded on that too. More statements from Moscow. Okay, is easy if anybody in the West cares about statements from Russia. The Russian foreign ministry has warned Lithuania against taking provocative steps on a transit to the Russian exclave of Kaliningrad. Spokeswoman Maria Zakharova stated on Wednesday that there should be no doubts that Russia will defend the interests of the Western regions. Okay, I have no idea what that means, that Russia will defend the interests of the Western regions. I don't know. But yet another statement from Russian officials, this time from foreign ministry, that, well, we will do this and we will do that. Okay. We get that. that the Russian leadership is very strong, man, in statements. We can do so many statements, man. Oh, no one can compare with us in statements. RIA Novosti is reporting that Erdogan and Merz will issue a statement following talks in Ankara. So Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and German Chancellor Friedrich Merz will deliver press statement following their talks in Ankara on Thursday, that is today. The Turkish leader's office told the RIA Novosti, and well, quite interesting. Today is Merz in Turkey. A few days ago, there was a Stammer in Turkey, isn't it? And someone before that. Clearly, coalition of willing is trying, seems like, to put as much pressure as they possibly can on Turkey. And if we keep in mind that Turkish political class is a proxy of UK, and the UK aristocracy is a leading force in among globalists, then none of us should be surprised, by the way. None of us should be surprised if those very same globalists will actually manage to persuade Turkish leadership to escalate with Moscow, despite this escalation being potentially being tremendously harmful for Turkey and Turkish economy. So therefore, it's not just Baltic Chihuahuas that are escalating in Russia, right? Or other Chihuahuas in Belgium and so on. Well, Turkey might escalate with Moscow very soon. I think that's what is happening, man. These trips of Merz, Starmer, and others, these trips serve one particular purpose: to force Ankara to submission to globalists and to begin escalating with Moscow. There is a high probability that Turkey will do it. I mean, you can see, by the way, even if if Baltic Chihuahuas are no longer care about Russia, then Turkey is at least like significantly more powerful in every possible way than those Chihuahuas, right? So if they don't care, then why should Turkey care? Right? Europeans might promise Turkey tremendous investments to compensate losses, economical, financial losses as a result of escalation with Russia. And yet again, Turkey served as a British proxy for so long, by the way, that for some people probably it is still quite surprising that Ankara was not yet on the same level of escalation with Russia as the so-called coalition of willing is, for example, right? And so, yes, let's see, maybe Merz, Stammer, others promised Turkey hundreds of billions of euros of investments, and that could be a game changer, right? Maybe they will manage to persuade Ankara to act under the Western orders, under the orders of globalists, and escalate with Russia enormously. And unfortunately, Turkey can escalate with Russia in a number of directions. And they will, I'm afraid. So soon we should expect, by the way, tremendous deterioration in the relationships between Russia and Turkey, and the extreme hostility of Turkey towards Russia. Matter of time, I think. Meanwhile, IAEA head Rafael Grossi made a statement, interesting one, that IAEA never had and does not have any information about Iran developing nuclear weapons. Okay. I wonder why Rafael Grossi authorized document of IAEA to be published day before Israel struck Iran, in which there was a formulation was not as clear as it is in this statement of Grossi himself. Why he authorized that document to be published day before Israel attacked Iran, in which there was no clear formulations, and Israel used that document as a justification for its attack on Iran, and US did the same. And yet again, IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency, by the way, which is formerly UN body, is of course a joker. It's a tool in hands of Western elites, and will stay that way forever. I guess I don't think IAEA can be reformed, right? And if this world wants some actual independent institution that will monitor nuclear field or atomic field, well, something else have to be created. Not on basis of UN, by the way, because UN is a joke itself. UN is a joke itself, right? For example, yesterday during the second update, I did share information that 164 or 65 countries, by the way, voted in favor of a resolution that calls US to end illegal embargo on Cuba. 7 countries voted against, including US, obviously. And like 12 countries, if I remember correctly, abstained. So vast majority of this world, population-wise, country-wise, in every possible sense, vast majority of the humanity said, end this illegal embargo of Cuba. And Washington says, we don't care. We don't care, man. You are nobodies, right? We just don't care. We do whatever we want. That's what US says. And that's what US always says and always does, man. That's their fact of the life, right? True of the life. So if UN is a freaking joke, man, what about all these so-called UN bodies, IAEA, WCO, and the rest of the organizations? All are joke, man. All are joke. All are controlled by Western so-called elites, and should be ignored by the rest of the world. I have no freaking idea why Russia is still member of these so-called organizations. Nevertheless, let's continue with some other news. 4 more people were killed, by the way, as a result of yet another U.S. terrorist attack on a boat in Pacific. This was reported by Hexeter himself. Video is also shared of destruction of this boat. At this point, I don't know, number of these executed people under the orders of Trump is like more than like 3 dozens of people already being killed, isn't it? Like 30 plus. I'm telling you, man, Trump is a mass murderer officially, right? All these strikes are authorized by Trump personally. And even if some of those people were linked to drug cartels or whatever, they have to be due process. If you are killing people without due process, you are a murderer, right? And Trump is a mass murderer at this point, by the way. He killed dozens and dozens of people just during these attacks on the boats, right? Nothing to be said about Trump being guilty on genocide of Palestinian people, by the way, right? And U.S. political class in general, because without U.S. direct military intelligence assistance, financial assistance, Israeli regime would not be in a position to genocide Palestinian people. The Western world in general is guilty of that genocide, 100%, right? So all of them are freaking mass murderers, man. All those so-called elites in the West. And I will share with you this report also from Vzlyad newspaper that allegedly Japan's prime minister told Trump that she refuses to impose a ban on Russian LNG. Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaishi told Donald Trump that it would be impossible to refuse imports of Russian gas as the embargo would damage the country's economy. Takaishi made her position known during her talks with the US President Donald Trump in Tokyo, according to TASS news agency. Nikkei, by the way, Japanese media outlet, also reported that Prime Minister of Japan emphasized that Japan's refusal to accept Russian LNG would have a negative economic consequences, with only China and Russia benefiting. Well, that's a quite explanation, isn't it? If you mention China and Russia to Trump, then you can justify anything. I mean, we cannot cut. We cannot stop buying Russian LNG because in that case, Russia itself will benefit more, and China, right? And well, once Trump will hear Russia, China, oh, okay, do whatever you can to harm these two, right? Unbelievable, man. This world is turned into a freaking bloody circus, man. I'm telling you. And well, let me repeat this news that I mentioned yesterday during the second update, during the evening's update, that Nvidia, by the way, US IT company, is worth now $5 trillion, according to market value. 4 trillion was reached by this very company in just last July, right? And now you tell me if these numbers are not inflated or extremely inflated, right? You tell me if US stock market is not a freaking bubble, man. Nvidia entirely depends on materials that are coming from many countries in this world, right? Nvidia itself does not has resources it needs to produce those freaking chips, right? And to produce the chip, you need the resources, you need the minerals. So when this company is this dependent on supply chain from number of countries, when the world is on the brink of all-out war, by the way, you tell me how come that Nvidia is worth 5 trillion? Makes no sense, right? I mean, I can take a time and come up with dozens and dozens of reasons why Nvidia cannot worth 5 trillion, right? But I don't think I have to do this because, I don't care really. It's a U.S. economy. It's a U.S. and Western economy in general that is manipulating with data, manipulating with numbers, inflating stocks of these loosely relevant companies, right? World can live without Nvidia, right? Easy, by the way. If you think it is only Nvidia that produces freaking chips, that's a mistake. What can definitely survive without Nvidia, and I don't think this company worth 5 trillion. I don't think this company worth even a trillion. And the only question I have right now is what is going on among investors? Why they are investing this much money into this company? I don't know. Maybe they don't know what else to do, man. Maybe they have just a lot of money and don't know what to do. I don't know, but this is not normal, man. I think this is not freaking normal. And I guess economical experts, by the way, will explain it much better why it's a bubble, that is enormous bubble that was created on the stock markets in US and in economy in general. By the way, it's not just IT bubble or AI bubble, but there are bubbles all over the industries there, right? And it's only a matter of time until they will go off. So, dear friends, anyways, this is it for today's first update, first live stream. If you find this update informative, dear friends, useful, interesting, entertaining, maybe, please like the video. And leave some commentary. I will check right now on Rumble if there was any super chat. So I cannot see on Rumble no super chat. So I guess there was nothing there, right? There was nothing through, no questions or comments to highlight through Boosty either. And I guess there was nothing also through PayPal. Otherwise, my wife would send me a message about it. So So that's it then. That's it for now. Dear friends on Rumble, let me just make sure. Was there any super chat? Sometimes, I don't know why, but every 20, 30 minutes, comments are disappearing on Rumble chat. And I don't know how to recover those comments. And uh, can you comment on Rumble, dear friends, if there was any super chat and I missed it? I don't know. Anyways, dear friends, this is it for now. Have a wonderful day and take care. Bye.